The Industrial Revolution is typically understood as a gradual acceleration. Steam power in the 1760s, mechanization through the early 1800s, factories spreading across decades. By that narrative, innovation should follow population growth, literacy rates, and institutional capacity. It should build incrementally. But the patent records tell a different story. Between 1850 and 1860, the United States Patent Office processed more applications than it had in the entire period from 1790 to 1849. In Britain, the decade surrounding the Great Exhibition of 1851 saw filings triple compared to the 30 years prior. These weren't just incremental increases. They were vertical surges that appeared without corresponding expansions in technical education, engineering schools, or accessible scientific literature. The spike wasn't limited to one country. It occurred simultaneously across the English-speaking world, in regions with vastly different economies, population densities, and industrial bases. And the technologies being patented weren't simple refinements. They were complex systems: hydraulic presses, railroad signaling mechanisms, urban gas distribution networks, that required foundational knowledge most people didn't have access to. If innovation follows infrastructure, this timing doesn't fit. Before continuing, a documentary responsibility. This script explores historical patterns using the term Tartaria as a modern interpretive label, not as a verified historical claim. The observations presented are real. The conclusions are left open. What follows is an examination of timing, scale, and systems, not an accusation. Let's start with what the official record says. In 1836, the U.S. Patent Office was destroyed by fire. Nearly all records from 1790 to 1836 were lost. When the office reopened, it introduced a new examination system, requiring inventors to prove their designs were novel and functional. That barrier should have slowed filings. Instead, they exploded. By 1850, the Patent Office was receiving over 2,000 applications per year. By 1860, that number exceeded 7,000. The office expanded its staff, built new archive wings, and designed filing systems for a volume it had never handled before. But here's the friction. In 1850, fewer than half of American adults could read beyond a basic level. Engineering schools were rare. Technical journals were expensive and regionally isolated. There was no national curriculum for mechanics, no widespread apprenticeship standard, no centralized way to transmit the knowledge required to design a railroad coupling or a rotary steam engine. Yet the patents kept coming. And they weren't just appearing in industrial centers. Take the hydraulic press patents filed in the 1850s. These devices required precise understanding of fluid dynamics, material tolerances, and pressure distribution, concepts that didn't appear in widely accessible textbooks until the 1870s. Yet inventors in rural Pennsylvania, upstate New York, and the English Midlands were filing mechanically sophisticated designs within months of each other. There was no internet, no technical conferences, no trade publications with national reach. The designs were often too similar to be independent. In 1851, during the Great Exhibition at the Crystal Palace, over 13,000 exhibitors showcased technologies from across the world. Many of the devices on display, automated looms, precision lathes, interchangeable firearm components, had been patented within the previous 5 years. But the exhibition catalog reveals something unexpected. Many of these technologies had no clear prior public prototype. They appeared in patent filings first, then in exhibitions, as if the documentation preceded the demonstration. Normally, invention works the other way. You build, test, refine, then you file. But in this period, the paper trail often came first. Consider the case of urban gas lighting. By 1860, most major cities in Britain and the northeastern United States had comprehensive gas distribution networks. These systems required underground piping, pressure regulation, metered distribution, and safety shutoffs, all of which were patented between 1845 and 1855. But the infrastructure was already being laid before the patents were widely published. In Baltimore, gas mains were installed in 1846. In Manchester, the network expanded in 1847. These were not experimental pilot programs. They were city-wide systems installed rapidly with coordinated standards for pipe diameter, valve threading, and pressure limits. The installations moved faster than the patents could circulate. It's as if the systems were understood before they were formally documented. The same pattern appears in railway signaling. Before 1850, most train coordination relied on timetables and line-of-sight communication. Then, within a single decade, interlocking signal systems appeared across Britain and the United States. Mechanical devices that prevented conflicting train movements by physically linking switches and signals. These systems required fail-safe logic. If one lever moved, others had to lock. The mechanics were complex, involving weighted arms, counterbalances, and sequential dependencies. But the patents for these systems were filed in rapid succession, often within months, by inventors who had no documented contact with each other. In 1856, John Saxby patented an interlocking frame in Britain. That same year, Ashbel Welch filed a nearly identical design in New Jersey. The mechanical principles were the same. The layout diagrams were almost interchangeable. There's no evidence they ever met. No record of shared correspondence. No mutual employer or institutional link. Yet the devices were close enough that railway companies adopted both without modification. This raises a question the record doesn't answer. Where was the knowledge coming from? If these technologies required specialized training, where were the schools? If they needed iterative development, where are the earlier, failed versions? If they spread through communication, where are the letters, the journals, the documented exchanges? The patent offices expanded to handle the volume. The filing systems were built before the surge fully arrived. And the records suggest preparation, not reaction. The preparation becomes more visible when you look at infrastructure. In 1825, the Erie Canal opened in New York, a 363-mile engineered waterway connecting the Hudson River to Lake Erie. It was the longest canal in the Western Hemisphere at the time, cutting through wilderness, over rivers, across elevation changes that required 83 separate locks. The canal was designed to move freight at industrial scale. But in 1825, there wasn't industrial-scale freight to move. The population along the route was sparse. Most settlements were farming communities with local economies. There were no factories lining the canal. No warehouses waiting to ship goods. No established supply chains that required a 363-mile water corridor. The infrastructure arrived first. Within 10 years, the canal was operating near capacity. Towns appeared along its length. Factories were built. Grain shipments from the interior reached New York Harbor in volumes that would have been impossible by wagon. But the canal wasn't built in response to that demand. It was built in anticipation of it. And the speed at which the supporting economy appeared raises its own questions. The same pattern repeats with the railroads. Between 1850 and 1860, the United States laid over 21,000 miles of railroad track, more than the entire European continent during the same period. Britain, during its so-called railway mania of the 1840s, built networks that connected cities with populations too small to justify the investment. In 1848, the Manchester and Birmingham Railway opened a line through regions where the combined towns along the route held fewer than 15,000 people. The line had double tracks, stone viaducts, and iron bridges built to carry weights far beyond what contemporary steam engines required. It was over-engineered for the present, but perfectly suited for the next 20 years. By 1865, those same lines were handling freight volumes that matched their design capacity. The infrastructure didn't need to be upgraded. It didn't need reinforcement. It had been built, from the beginning, as if the engineers knew exactly what load it would eventually carry. There's no evidence they conducted traffic studies. No surviving feasibility reports that projected future demand. The designs just assumed it. Look at the grain elevators. In the 1840s, Buffalo, New York, began constructing massive grain storage facilities along its waterfront, multi-story wooden structures with mechanical conveyor systems that could unload, weigh, and store thousands of bushels per hour. These weren't small silos. They were industrial processing hubs, designed with loading docks, sorting mechanisms, and internal railways. But in 1842, when the first elevator was completed, Buffalo's grain trade was modest. The volume didn't justify the capacity. Yet within a decade, the elevators were operating at full throughput, handling wheat shipments from the interior that arrived in quantities the system seemed built to expect. The infrastructure was ready before the economy demanded it. And the design consistency is notable. Grain elevators in Chicago, built in the 1850s, used nearly identical mechanisms: belt-driven bucket conveyors, gravity-fed sorting bins, standardized hopper dimensions. There's no record of a central design authority. No regulatory body enforcing uniformity. Yet the systems were interchangeable enough that equipment built in Buffalo could be installed in Chicago without modification. The standardization appeared without coordination. The same thing happened with urban water systems. In 1842, New York completed the Croton Aqueduct, a 41-mile gravity-fed water system that delivered 90 million gallons per day into the city. It included a dam, a reservoir, underground tunnels, and a distribution network with pressure-regulated valves. The system was built to serve a population of 500,000. In 1842, New York's population was approximately 300,000. The aqueduct had excess capacity from day one. But by 1860, the city's population had grown to match the system's design limits, and the infrastructure didn't need replacement. It had been scaled from the beginning for a future that hadn't arrived yet. London followed a similar trajectory. The Metropolitan Commission of Sewers, established in 1848, began construction on a citywide sanitation network designed by Joseph Bazalgette. The system included 82 miles of interceptor sewers, pumping stations, and outfall works. Bazalgette designed the sewers with twice the diameter that contemporary flow calculations required. When questioned, he reportedly said he was building for the future. But he had no population projections, no growth models, no data suggesting London would double in size within his lifetime. He just built it larger. And by 1875, the system was operating at the capacity he had designed for. Then there's the administrative systems. In 1837, Britain introduced civil registration, a centralized system for recording births, marriages, and deaths. Every event was logged in duplicate registries, cross-referenced by district, and stored in regional offices with identical filing architectures. The system launched fully formed. There was no pilot program, no gradual rollout. On July 1, 1837, the system went live across the entire country, with thousands of registrars using the same forms, following the same procedures, filing reports in the same format. The infrastructure required to support this, trained clerks, standardized paperwork, regional processing centers, appeared almost immediately. But training a national workforce in bureaucratic procedure takes time. The system behaved as if that training had already happened. The United States implemented a similar structure with the 1850 census. For the first time, enumerators were required to record individual names, ages, occupations, and birthplaces for every person in the country. The census required 6,000 enumerators. They were hired, trained, and deployed within 6 months. The data collection standards were uniform. The forms were identical. The tabulation methods were consistent across states with no centralized communication network. And the results were compiled within 2 years, an administrative feat that required pre-existing organizational capacity. The system moved as if the framework was already there. Consider the postal system. By 1860, the United States had over 28,000 post offices, more than any other country in the world. Mail moved on standardized schedules through coordinated railway routes, with sorting systems that allowed a letter mailed in Boston to reach San Francisco in under 3 weeks. The system required centralized route planning, uniform postage rates, and synchronized timetables across thousands of independent operators. But there was no federal Department of Transportation, no centralized logistics authority. The system coordinated itself, and it did so with a consistency that implies more than coincidence. In Britain, the penny post system, introduced in 1840, functioned the same way. Uniform rates, prepaid stamps, nationwide delivery. It launched without a test phase, and within 5 years, it was processing 350 million letters annually. The infrastructure scaled instantly. By the late 1850s, telegraph lines were being strung across the United States at a rate of over 1,000 miles per month. The systems used standardized pole heights, wire gauges, and insulator designs. There was no regulatory mandate, no industry consortium enforcing uniformity. Yet the components were interchangeable. A telegraph key built in Philadelphia worked with a relay built in Ohio. The voltage standards matched. The Morse code intervals were identical. The system behaved as if it had been designed by a single authority. But no such authority existed. What's emerging isn't a single anomaly. It's a pattern. Infrastructure built ahead of demand. Administrative systems launched at scale. Technologies that appear simultaneously in disconnected regions. Design standards that unify without central coordination. Individually, each could be explained. But together they create a profile. And that profile has started to carry a name. The term Tartaria appears on European maps from the 16th through 19th centuries, referring to the vast region stretching across northern and central Asia. It wasn't a unified empire in the political sense. It was a geographic label, a shorthand for territories that European cartographers understood incompletely. By the early 1900s, the term had mostly disappeared from official use. But in the last decade it has returned, not as geography but as interpretation. Online communities have begun using Tartaria as a framework for examining the patterns discussed here. The simultaneous appearance of complex systems, the infrastructure that precedes demand, the administrative uniformity that emerges without clear coordination. For some, the term represents a lost civilization. For others, it's a metaphor for inherited knowledge. And for a third group, it's simply a placeholder, a way of naming something the official record doesn't fully explain. All three interpretations exist in tension. None has been conclusively proven. None has been fully disproven. The first interpretation suggests a prior advanced society whose technical knowledge was absorbed and relabeled during the 19th century. Proponents point to the architectural consistency of civic buildings, the sudden emergence of engineering standards, and the gap between documented education and demonstrated capability. The second interpretation argues for a distributed inheritance, that knowledge survived through guilds, secret societies, or fragmented institutions, then re-emerged rapidly once political and economic conditions allowed. The third interpretation maintains that what appears as coordination is actually convergent evolution. Similar problems solved independently, producing similar results. Each model accounts for different parts of the evidence. None accounts for all of it. Return to 1816, the year without a summer. Volcanic ash from Mount Tambora dimmed sunlight across the northern hemisphere. Crops failed. Temperatures dropped. Famine spread through Europe and North America. The disaster should have collapsed economies. Instead, within a decade, the affected regions began the most sustained period of infrastructural expansion in recorded history. Canals were dug. Railways were laid. Cities were replanned. The recovery wasn't slow. It was explosive. And the systems that emerged were far more sophisticated than what had existed before the disruption. Whether this reflects resilience, reorganization, or something else depends on which framework you apply. The term Tartaria, in its modern usage, isn't a claim. It's a lens. It doesn't ask you to reject the official narrative. It asks you to notice where that narrative compresses complexity, skips explanation, or attributes coordination to coincidence. It's a way of holding space for the questions the evidence produces. And the evidence does produce questions. Why did grain elevators in separated cities use identical machinery with no documented exchange of design? Why were aqueducts built with double the required capacity before population models existed? Why did telegraph systems unify their standards without regulatory enforcement? These aren't unanswerable. But the answers require either accepting a level of decentralized coordination that strains probability, or considering that the knowledge base was wider, older, or more intact than the institutional record suggests. Neither option is comfortable. Both remain possible. What's certain is this: between 1840 and 1860, The English-speaking world built systems that functioned as if designed by a central intelligence that left no institutional trace. The systems worked, they scaled, they integrated, and they did so in a period when the mechanisms for such coordination, national standards bodies, technical universities, mass communication, didn't yet exist in functional form. That gap is where the conversation lives. Not in conspiracy, not in certainty. In the unresolved space between what the records show and what the outcomes required. The infrastructures remain. The patents are archived. The systems still function, many of them more than a century later. What remains uncertain is how they came to be, so quickly, so uniformly, so completely. The term Tartaria offers one way to hold that uncertainty without collapsing it into premature conclusion. The evidence invites examination. The questions remain open. And the timing, scale, and coordination continue to resist easy explanation.